debut episode of Real Talk, where we review film. And we got our filmographer, Alex Hall, on the set to help out with this show. And before we jump into this, I mean, we're going to be doing an episode on the new movie that came out, Logan, and we're doing a review of that film. But before we get into it, spoiler alert, we're going to be giving away spoilers and talking about what happened in this film. So if you don't want to see that, X out, watch the film, and come back later. So Alex, why don't you lead us off on this?
Well, I guess the biggest and most important thing to start with, first of all, here is it's about fucking time. This is the kind of X-Men movie, especially a Wolverine movie, that has been long overdue. This is something that we've been wanting for a long time, and it finally acknowledges the truth that these movies are not for kids, they're for nerds, okay? Grown-ass men nerds who need to see superheroes kicking some ass. So you don't need to make all of them PG-13. Now, I know before I continue on that this is not the first rated R comic book movie, but this is... Deadpool was the first one to really gain momentum and clear the way and show Hollywood that this is worth investing in. So we can thank Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool for this actually happening, which I'm sure most of you already know.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like you said, and I've always been of the opinion that generally speaking, when a movie is rated R, it enhances the quality, regardless of the genre. So bringing that to the superhero films, in particular, it makes me more interested because, like, I'm not one to really go to a whole lot of, like, PG or PG-13 superhero films usually. So the R-rated ones definitely help out for me. I know that.
It's like PG-13 RoboCop and all this other nonsense going on. I mean, I saw Predator when I was, like, 7 years old, so they're going to have to beef it up a little bit for me for these movies.
Yeah.
But I guess the other thing that we should talk about here is the bad history of Wolverine movies. How can a character that's so excellent that people love in so many of these movies have such a bad reputation for his single, spin-off movies? Like Wolverine Origins, people talk about all the time. I thought personally that the acting in it was atrocious, even from Hugh Jackman, a legend such as he is. And then, of course, Wolverine Goes to Japan, which I think is better, and I know you don't agree with that. But the only flaw I really see in that is the fourth act. But comic books are a little hokey sometimes, so I kind of gave them the benefit of the doubt, and I understand that Wolverine just needs to fight a giant samurai made out of metal every once in a while.
Yeah, like, Wolverine Goes to Japan, as we're calling it. Don't think that's the actual movie title. This is just Wolverine, right?
Yeah, but come on, it's Wolverine Goes to Japan. That's the real title.
So anyway, that film, and, like, we both watched that. You clearly think it's better than Origins. I don't. I was not on board with, like, just the general, like, plot and setting of that movie and, like, what was going on. I actually didn't think the acting was that great in that movie. But comparing that to Origins, there were problems with Origins, particularly, like, the intro. You remember, like, they skipped over all the war scenes where, like, it would have been so much more badass if they just played it out.
Right. So we can see Wolverine, hang out with a girl and figure out a stupid origin his name.
So I can concede that to you, and then also, like, this didn't matter so much for me because I'm not, like, big into the comic books, but a lot of people took issue with, like, how Deadpool was portrayed at the end.
Yeah,
and I get that too.
That's another problem with PG-13.
Yeah, so, like, there's definitely some problems with the film, but, like, overall, like, again, we had different points of view on, like, which out of those two was better.
Right, and, as I'm sure a lot of people have heard, and it may be just rumors, but I'm excited over the idea of the Wolverine-Deadpool crossover kind of movies that supposedly Ryan Reynolds is trying to push Jackman's way. He's trying to convince him to, like, stay in the game at least for something like this. I think those can make for some pretty funny movies, It's almost like a Men in Black of that kind of movie, right? It's like Wolverine is Tommy Lee Jones and Deadpool is Will Smith.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to play out, but they better make it rated R.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Otherwise, definitely not worth seeing, right? But I guess we should move on. And as far as some of the technical stuff, I thought that there wasn't a whole lot of complex editing in this or really fancy camera tricks. There were just really nice, well-done shots, like the one where Wolverine's, he's all messed up and he's holding the girl and walking away from the flaming car. I think they've even put that on some movie posters and images and stuff. So that's pretty cool. And then they use the sets, they use cool deserts and things like that. But I didn't really see, a whole lot of complex technical stuff. And the fight scenes, I mean, it was perfect. Because today, you see like 15 different camera angles and they're shaking the camera. You got this awesome fight scene that many of the people in the audience are claiming that they can't even tell what's going on. So it was really refreshing to see in Wolverine that they were like, we don't need any of that. just Hugh Jackman and this girl, his daughter, what was her character's name?
Laura.
Right, just showing their best choreography. I mean, whoever put them in charge of the kinds of moves that they had to do in that movie, I thought that was pretty good, well put together. I mean, stuff we've seen Jackman do before, but again, the rated R version, we got to see decapitations, we got to see arms and heads just torn apart instead of that PG stuff we've seen him doing.
Yeah, and now that I'm thinking about it, like, I actually really like the casting they did for this film. Bringing back like the original Charles Xavier from like the X-Men series,
right?
And then having I think we don't remember like what the character's name is, but that albino guy, I think he did a good job.
Right? Who the hell knows who that is?
And,
it was a cool guy. I'm sure it's some sort of comic book Easter egg that I'm not aware of. Please feel free to post in the comments, whoever it is, and tell me I'm stupid. I'm used to it. But anyway, I cut you off.
And like. The kids did such a great job in this film. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, and kids are terrible actors. Like, think of Star Wars and things like that. You don't want to work with kids.
Yeah, they did a great job in this. And then what also sticks out to me is like the main villain. I actually recognize that guy because he was in the Narcos series on Netflix.
Never seen it.
Yeah, but he was in that and like did a good job, and like I recognized the guy during the film. I was like, yeah, like this is probably a pretty good choice for a bad guy actually. So
yeah, they've done pretty good jobs with casting in the past. I liked in X2. I liked who played the scientist who put the animanium into Wolverine's bones. He was by far my favorite portrayal. So. They've and then of course the short guy. I know I'm using the bad term from Game of Thrones. He was in the Days of Future Past, and I thought he was really great. So it seems to me lately they've been really careful about the choices that they make for villains as far as actors go.
Yeah, and like, I mean, and you were touching on this earlier. The action scenes in this film. I mean. Regardless of whether or not they're using like fancy editing tricks, like it turned out great,
Yeah.
And then what the biggest shock for me in this film was when Charles Xavier gets basically like murdered in his bed, and like when you're watching it, like my reaction was like, okay, what is going on? Like, why is Logan doing this to him? And then it finally like hit me like minutes later. Wait a minute, this is like the genetically modified Wolverine.
Yeah, I've seen the movie twice now, and both times the whole theater falls silent, or you hear just people going, what the hell is going on? Including myself, at least the first time I saw it, obviously. Because you just, you don't know what's going on, You notice it maybe, after a second that it doesn't quite look like the Logan that we've been seeing the whole movie. It doesn't look all old and run down. But it certainly takes you a second. You think maybe he just went to the bathroom and finally shaved himself,
Yeah. So that was definitely a crazy part, and then obviously the other really crazy part was the ending, because and we talked about this, wow, they actually had the balls to kill off Wolverine at the end of the film. Who would have saw that?
In Batman vs. Superman this year, what do? They show the rocks rising. They couldn't even give us another movie to go, oh, is he dead? Is he not dead? Is he coming back? But with this, it was just bam, certain, that's it. And then another crazy thing is I sat around, including many other people, waiting for the ending credit scene where he comes back to life or his arm comes out or whatever, or something happens, right? And there was nothing. There wasn't a halfway through the credits kind of scene. There wasn't an end of the credits kind of scene. It was kind of funny to see everybody sitting around. But it was a great choice,
Yeah, definitely a great choice, not something I expected. There's a lot of stuff that happened in this film I didn't expect. That was what's so great about it. But then, I guess the other thing we should talk about, though, is the, just kind of the connection between Laura and Logan, and, how that, he basically, the end, also what sticks out is, yeah, he dies, and that's, shocking in and of itself, but, you think about Wolverine, how he always would talk about, oh, everyone that gets close to me in my life, something bad happens to him.
Yeah, that's the theme in all three of the Wolverine movies, to go back on that a little bit. That's a big part. It's always him regretting the decisions that he's made in his life. Him oh man, I shouldn't have done this, shouldn't have done that. But I'm taking away from your point. What were you saying?
My point was just that, at the end, it's almost like he can die with, a sigh of relief. Oh, I finally got someone, with me while I'm dying. I'm not dying alone in some room. You know what I mean? I definitely got that kind of vibe from it, too.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about this character is that every movie he feels isolated and he feels like a failure. And at the end of every movie, it's revealed that there is hope, that maybe he's not a failure. and he's certainly not alone. He's always got people that help him out in the clutch. Even though he can't die, he finds himself in peril, needing help frequently in these films.
Yeah. And then the one other major theme I'd want to touch on is that, like we talked about how the whole thing about like how, originally the X-Men series, the mutants were viewed as this like super race, the next step in evolution, and then like this is a futuristic setting, kind of like a post-apocalyptic kind of setting in a way. Like they kind of shifted back to like, no, maybe we were a mistake because all the mutants are like dying out now. It's basically like it's Logan, it's Professor X, it's the albino guy, a handful of others, and then all the genetically created mutants, and that's it. That's all that's left.
Yeah, it's an interesting point that you brought up the apocalyptic thing, because this was actually inspired by a comic book that already existed called Old Man Logan. Now, luckily, they didn't copy the story entirely. In fact, they only did a couple of ideas and things from it because there were still those contractual issues. Marvel still owned a lot of the characters that are in that story. A lot of them themed the Avengers and things like that. So that's kind of something that they couldn't swing. And then another thing that I really liked was, if you know Batman at all, there's a point to this, I'm coming back to it, but if you know Batman at all, any Batman fan worth his salt knows that Bane was kept in the prison for forever and that he was born and raised there and was eventually able to escape. So when they were insinuating that it was him in the film, you weren't just convincing that of the audience, you were showing the comic book nerds that they were right when they showed up, that this is the deal, born and raised in prison, escaped, the whole deal, right? Only to kind of surprise you and freak you out at the end to have it be the woman. So in Old Man Logan, Wolverine is tricked into killing all the X-Men, where in this movie, they hint at it, they make you think that that's what happened, because Xavier keeps saying, oh, well, why are we here? What did you do? What's going on? And then it's kind of revealed almost right before Xavier dies, and it's kind of hinted at a little bit over the radio earlier on, is that he's actually the one that killed the majority of the X-Men in the home. He says he remembers what happened at Westchester, and that movie is much more apocalyptic and hopeless than even this movie. And I think they were kind of trying, one of the ways that they hinted at that was all the desert scenes and stuff like that. Like, everywhere that him and Laura and Xavier go is very rural. It's very, empty, big spaces, stuff like that. So it's almost got this feel that there's nothing. And then you hear things over the radio like, oh, our water's being poisoned, we're dying out, it's the year 2026. But when you see people, they just seem like they're acting like it was yesterday. And then the mutants going away, that's hinted at the comic books. There hasn't been a new mutant in 20 or 30 years in that storyline either. Emma Frost, who you might remember from, X-Men First Class. Mm-hmm. She's one of the few remaining mutants, and she's the one that says that line about, yes, I don't think we were another evolutionary key. We were probably just maybe God's mistakes, and there's only a few of us left. Yeah. So, some of those things were thrown in there, and they even threw in a joke about dinosaurs when him and that farmer guy from that family that they met go out back and they see those big machines making the soda and the energy drinks or whatever. He comments that they kind of look like dinosaurs, and that's a subtle hint at the book too, because there are actual dinosaurs in this apocalyptic world. It's almost like Mad Max-ish kind of crazy stuff. But I feel like I'm rambling a little bit more. We should probably move on. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on?
I think we actually probably covered everything pretty well. So I think that's going to do it. And hope you enjoyed the debut episode of Real Talk from Alex and Justin, myself, the LitTube family. Make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Have a good one, everybody.